Tom Berenger is Bilbo Berenger in The Berenger. It's the most Berenger he's ever been, the New York Post. Really, you must see Tom Berenger. It's like you're watching Tom Berenger and he's right there. It's Tom Berenger, says Vanity Fair. Yes, Tom Berenger in The Berenger is quite possibly the most Tom Berenger event this season. Buy it somewhere. But if you can't find it somewhere, because finding things somewhere or anywhere can be pretty damn difficult, Tom Berenger himself will download it off the Berenger internet. That's a special strain of the internet only found at Tom Berenger's house. He'll put it down onto a DVD for you, or a Berenger DVD. Again, that's a special type of DVD. He'll put it in a box, or as he likes to call them, Berengers, and he'll send it by carrier Berenger over to your house directly with a note that says, "Enjoy my Berengering. Lots of love, Tom Berenger."
Hi, this is Director Jim Wynorski. I'm having a big friggin' piece of pie here at the After Movie Diner. We just watched a great show. Check it out.
Yeah, check us out. Yeah, that was Jim Wynorski, everybody, introducing this episode of the After Movie Diner. Can you believe it? Check this out. Actually, Jim, just to let you know, the check is in the mail, along with that book you ordered. What was it? Oh, yes. Waxing Your Chests by Marjorie Large Glands. So that is winging its way to you right now by Carrier Berenger. Don't forget. So yes, hello and welcome to this special episode of the After Movie Diner. And it's special because we've got yet another one of our fantastic interviews. And this week, I couldn't quite believe it, but we managed to net, capture, and drag onto the show, kicking and screaming for all his worth, Christopher Lennertz, who is the composer of the score of the #1 movie in America as I record this. Yes, it is Wednesday evening of Wednesday the 5th of February 2014, the night that I sit down to record this, and in the theaters at the moment, the #1 movie, which is Ride Along, starring Kevin Hart and Ice Cube. That is the movie. Christopher Lennertz did the score. He's been doing scores since the mid-90s. We talk about composing. We talk about his favorite movies, his favorite composers. We talk about all sorts of stuff. You will want to stick around for this interview. It is awesome. However, before that, we have a couple of bits of business. The first bit of business is that I was sent an absolutely fantastic email this week that I just want to pull up, but while I'm also obviously going to do the traditional fake rustling of paper, as if people still send me actual letters. So let's just do... There we go. Okay, excellent. And this wonderful email was by an Emily O'Driscoll, who's the publicist for Graham Jones, who's an Irish independent director. And she writes, "My partner was very proud to have missed only 4 of your shows last year. What I want to know is, as lovely as that is and as wonderful as that is, did he catch up on the 4 shows before we went into Original Gangsters Month? That's what I want to know. Did he catch up on those 4 shows, or has he just given up on the show altogether? And who can blame him?" But anyway, she goes on to say that attached is a track called Falling for Cities by Irish duo, and I'm going to probably mispronounce this, but Gabelunzi? I don't know whether that's the right thing. It's probably a completely different pronunciation, so I'm sorry about that. I am a dumb English person. Anyway, it goes on to say, "In case you guys could possibly give it a play, it's from our Irish movies soundtrack and would be a simple way of letting people know about The Randomers, which is being released digitally in 154 countries to celebrate Valentine's Day. The film was shot in the counties of Galway and Mayo using local actors, musicians, and scenery. The production didn't even have a budget for catering, but the cast and crew were eager to work on a challenging project nonetheless." A little bit about The Randomers before I play the track. It tells of the story of a girl on the west coast of Ireland, played by Sarah Jane Murphy, who places an advertisement seeking a guy for a relationship without speaking, and finds exactly what she's looking for in Joseph Lydon. There's something about him she doesn't know, says award-winning director Graham Jones, but he's not going to be chatty about it. I've always wondered why romantic movies are so dialogue-driven. After all, not even the most talkative relationships seem deeply rooted in words. And like his previous movies, such as Fudge 44 and How to Cheat in the Leaving Certificate, which was released through cinemas or DVD, this Graham Jones film is freely available online for anybody to watch. And the link is currently on our After Movie Diner page. So go over to aftermoviediner.com and find the article that's on the randomers. Click through there and you'll find the link. That's aftermoviediner.com. Either that or just go to therandomers.com. That's the random, as in random whatever, and then ERS on the end.com. Go there and the movie will automatically start playing, so you can do that as well. But if you go through the After Movie Diner, you might see other stuff you might like. So whatever. Anyway. Basically, we're going to play this track now as part of an advertisement for the randomers, and we do suggest you all go check it out. It's a beautiful little movie, and Graham Jones has done a great job, and I have to thank Emily O'Driscoll for sending this through. Thanks ever so much, Emily, and thanks ever so much, Graham, for making this movie. So there we go, a little independent plug there for this great movie. And here's the song, and then after the song, another bit of business, and then our wonderful interview with Christopher Lennertz coming up. Don't go anywhere.
There's a little city waiting for me. I can see the chorus of lights and the chorus of dreams. Oh, but I'll get by with your love, waiting in line for the same train time, but I won't be scared of blue. Send me little letters of love and of happiness true. All the while it's Christmas time and I'm waiting for you. Oh, but I'll get by with your love, waiting in line for the same train time, but I won't be scared. Everyone's a winner, we all become believers. Everyone's a winner, we all become believers. Well, maybe I'll never love. Oh, I can see clearly. Yeah. Everyone's a winner, we all become believers this time next year. Everyone's a winner, we all become believers this time next year. Everyone's a winner, we all become believers this time next year. Everyone's a winner, we all become believers this time next year.
Well, wasn't that wonderful? That was fantastic. Thanks ever so much for sending that song in, and I do hope that some, if not all, of our listeners go and watch The Randomers now over at therandomers.com. Please go and check that out. So before we get to our Christopher Lennertz interview, just another bit of business about Original Gangsters 2. Yeah, I'm not going to stop talking about it, guys, because they have set up their Indiegogo campaign over at originalgangsters2.com. That's gangsters AS at the end, and then the numerical 2.com, which is going to be running for, I think it's another 58 days. So if you haven't already donated to Original Gangsters 2, or even if you did donate on the Kickstarter campaign, that has now been closed. They've got rid of that now. You want to go over to originalgangsters2.com and either donate again if you'd already donated on Kickstarter, or donate for the first time on the Indiegogo campaign. So they've got lots more stuff going on. There's all the usual prizes and wonderful things that you can get as part of a donation. And I think even as low as $10, you get your name on the film forever. So go over to Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid commentaries. There's also a link to it over on aftermoviediner.com because on the last show of January, we interviewed Jason Roth, the producer of Original Gangsters 2, who fills in more details. But basically, go to originalgangsters2.com. That's gangsters with an AS. That's the numerical 2.com. And donate to get this movie made. We're talking Fred the Hammer Williamson. We're talking Pam Grier. We're talking Richard Roundtree. We're talking Jim Brown, Antonio Fargas. Why wouldn't we want these guys back in a movie? Come on, it's going to be the African-American Expendables. We can make it happen. Only we can make it happen because Hollywood doesn't care about it for whatever not-so reason. I don't understand. They've got to make fucking Avatar 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever they've got to do. They've got to go make fucking Noah the movie. Christ. Original Gangsters 2, donate, because only we can make this movie happen. Okay, so if you like any of those people involved in that movie at all, and of course you do, you're breathing in and out, you're a human being, of course you love those people, then go donate. Throw them a few shekels. Why not, indeed? And then you'll get your name on the end of the movie forever. So that means that let's presume like Blu-rays or DVDs or whatever, or no, let's just presume streaming or whatever exists into the future. Your grandchildren, your grandchildren's grandchildren can watch Original Gangsters too, because of course that's what they're going to be watching in the future, and they're going to be able to see your name on there, and they're going to be able to feel pride in their guts that you slipped $10 their way, or $20, or hell, $60, whatever you can spare. Go ahead and do it. We have, and we will continue to promote the film until it gets made. So if you want to shut me up, go to originalgangsters2.com.
Movies need only 3 things: badasses.
You tell me who you want done, and I'll do the hell out of it.
A chick with drive who don't take no jive.
Boobs.
Do you know that the female breast, known to be the source of life since Eve, can be deadly weapons?
And body counts.
Body count. The mathematics of murder and menace.
The BB&BC podcast discusses lesser-known action, exploitation, and horror cult cinema. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher Smart Radio, and SoundCloud by searching for BB&BC Podcast. You can also listen to each episode directly on the show's website at badassesboobsandbodycounts.com.
Got the goddamn message? Let's go to work.
Hi there, I'm a Gumbo, and I'm with the Traumatic Cinematic Show. We're a podcast that talks about films. Yeah, we'd like to invite you to come listen to our show. You can find us at traumaticcinematic.com. You can also find us on Twitter at DC Podcast Crew. Also, you should come over and check out our Podomatic page, traumaticcinematic.podomatic.com. We're also on Facebook, so you can come on out there and find us too. I'm on the internet.
Okay, so now it is our distinct pleasure to introduce onto the show Christopher Lennertz, who is a film composer, has been since the middle of the 90s, did lots of B-movie work with Roger Corman's company back in the day, but now has escalated to have scored the #1 movie in America as I sit here, Ride Along, starring Kevin Hart. He's also done TV shows Supernatural and Revolution. He did a couple of the Marvel one-shots, which we talk about, Agent Carter and Item 47. He did the scores for them. He did the recent hits Identity Thief and Horrible Bosses, as well as numerous video games and lots of other things besides. We get into it in the interview. It was fantastic talking to him. We talk about famous composers and great movies and all sorts of stuff. So please do stick around and please do have a listen. Here we go.
Yes. Hello, Chris. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm very good. So when did music and composing all begin for you then, sir?
Well, music began at about 8 or 9 years old when I started playing the trumpet. Composing, I began writing songs in sort of my high school years, in my teens, and then sort of moved into more classical and symphonic things once I got into college and university and that kind of stuff. So it sort of, I started with music around 9 and then sort of really got into writing in my late teens probably.
Yeah, and your first instrument was the trumpet, and do you play any other instruments?
Guitar. I actually switched from trumpet to guitar at about 13, and that's sort of my main instrument is guitar.
And was the goal always to sort of compose for movies and film, or?
No, I mean, the goal originally was to be a rock star.
Right.
and I'm sure as most people are. But then I sort of probably by the time I got to college, when I was, maybe 19 or 20, I managed, I saw, I was a big fan of film music and that kind of thing before because I grew up, in the 80s with, Back to the Future and Indiana Jones and all that great stuff. But then I managed to see Henry Mancini do a scoring session when I was in college, and that sort of got me hooked, and I really decided that writing and doing dramatic music was something that would be mostly up my alley,
Yeah. And your filmography sort of starts with, in the 90s, with sort of scoring low-budget indie movies, B-movies, genre films and things. How did you kind of get your first step into the industry?
Well, I mean, there was a couple of steps. The first one was the fact that I interned for Roger Corman's company when I was in school, probably in my early 20s. And I went on to do quite a few, lower budget B movie kind of things with them when I got out of school. And simultaneously, I was also working part-time and then went on to work full-time for a couple of years for a composer named Basil Polidorus, who ended up being my long-term mentor. And he had done, Conan the Barbarian and RoboCop and Hunt for October, those kind of things. So so I learned from both situations. I got a lot more contacts. I learned a lot from that. So that's probably how I really got into the industry.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. What was it like? I'm a bit of a film geek about sort of earlier B movies and Corman's company and things like that. What was it like? Are you into those kind of movies? Are you a film geek as well, or was it always more? Yeah. Yeah.
No, I definitely. I'm a huge, especially I'm a geek, film geek all around. I love sci-fi. I definitely love sort of the sword and sandal stuff. And I love anything espionage too. I love all the James Bond kind of things and the Bourne Identity and all those sort of deals. So I love that kind of stuff as well.
And is that where you sort of draw your influences from, some of those kind of composers and things?
I think so. I sort of probably draw from all different ones, but definitely I draw from that kind of thing. I would say all across the board. I definitely grew up in the 80s though, so you can definitely, you can hear a lot of John Williams and a lot of Jerry Goldsmith and Danny Elfman and Basil Polidorus and those guys. You hear a lot of that, I think, in what I do because that's really what I grew up with.
Yeah. No. So you did the score, so sort of moving forward, you did the score for Soul Plane, which was one of your first occasions working with Kevin Hart. Am I correct?
That's right. Kevin Hart had a small part in that, but yeah, that's true. And I co-scored that one with the RZA from Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah, and how did that come about? And was that sort of your start in your career of comedy composing, or had you done some before that? I had definitely done some before that. I had done some more family-oriented comedies. I'd done, I think, right around the same time as when I did Dr. Dolittle 3, and that was sort of what led to Alvin and the Chipmunks. Right. And then, all of that sort of led back towards, Think Like a Man and this sort of run with Kevin Hart stuff, as well as the Horrible Bosses and Identity Thief and that kind of thing. So I think it definitely, that probably started the comedy role around then.
Yeah. And what was it like working with the Rizzo? What was that like? That must have been an experience and a half.
It was. He was lovely, I'll tell you. He really was great. And I didn't know what to expect from him. Obviously, I knew the Wu-Tang stuff, and I was a fan in that world, but I didn't know how he was going to approach, writing film music. And he really was very collaborative and actually just incredibly, smart about movies. He really loves films and, obviously went on to direct his own movie. So he's a big film geek as well. And it was nice to be able to sort of watch him work and then, get involved with what he was doing at that time.
Yeah, and obviously he's also shown up in some comedy films as well. I mean, clearly he's got that sense of humor to him,
Oh yeah. He can be funny, he can be serious. Very, very smart guy.
And so, yeah, you've worked, as you were saying, like with Kevin Hart again on Think Like a Man, and also with then his director, collaborator, Tim Story. You'd all go on to make, and the most recently, the hit comedy Ride Along, which, congratulations, is still #1.
Thank you.
Yeah, which is still in theaters. So what's the relationship like there? Is it really collaborative? Is Kevin part of it, or is it just you and Tim working together? How does that go?
You know what? I've met Kevin, and I think he's a genius. But most of what I do is work with Tim, and and obviously Tim trusts Kevin a lot to bring his stories to life. But I work with Tim. I'm starting the sequel to Think Like a Man right now, and that'll be my third movie with Tim, which it's just phenomenal. He's such a great collaborator and a phenomenal director that I'm definitely having a blast working with him.
Yeah, but I mean, #1 in the box office, that's got to feel pretty good, right? And this is coming up on the...
It feels very good.
Yeah, it's got to be second week, third week, something like that, I think. I don't know. And Horrible Bosses, was that #1? I think certainly when it came out the first week, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the first week, and we're getting ready to start on the second Horrible Bosses, which will be the summer, so...
Yeah, and do you see, obviously there's been lots of different strains of groups of comedic people coming out. Obviously the most prevalent one, I guess, is sort of the Judd Apatow kind of group and things. But there's been lots of different comedies that have branched out from lots of different places, really, and there's been a real sort of renaissance in the genre. When you think back to sort of the early 80s with the Saturday Night Live crew, that was kind of the last big sort of comedic boom, I guess. Do you feel like something like that is happening now?
I sure hope so, because those were some of my favorite movies, and I was really fortunate when I went to USC for college. I got to study with Elmer Bernstein, who basically scored all of those, everything from Caddyshack and Animal House to Stripes and Spies Like Us and Ghostbusters. So the fact that I'm now doing a lot of comedy is pretty fantastic, especially considering that I got to study with Elmer, and that was so much. Those were so many of my favorite movies when I was growing up.
It's funny you mentioned him. His name was the next one I was going to mention because I think when he was first tipped to do Animal House, maybe it was Stripes he was talking about this, but he found it odd that he was picked because obviously he sort of did very serious film work before then. He wasn't known for doing comedy, and I think one of the things that was interesting was that both round about that time with those movies, but also with the Monty Python movies, is that they were scored very seriously. They were scored dramatically. They were scored like they were big epic films, and yet obviously there's something very silly going on screen, and there's a great juxtaposition. Do you find yourself doing the same thing? Do you score seriously, or do you score with the comedy?
I think it depends on the scene and depends on the particular character. It's interesting for something like Ride Along, for example. I scored Kevin very much like a comedy, but then I scored Ice Cube completely straight, like he was Denzel Washington in Training Day.
Right.
So there was which made it funny because basically I played Kevin as the funny guy and I played Cube as the straight man, so their chemistry together and the way they played off each other was I think it made it, hopefully it brought up the humor and made it funnier.
Yeah, no, definitely, and obviously there's a lot of action in there as well. Are there action scores that you can think of from the past that you kind of drew off, or are there any particularly that stand out that you enjoy that you used?
Action stuff? I mean,
yeah.
Absolutely. I think what John Powell does is fantastic. I love what he does on things like Italian Job and Born Identity. I think he's probably one of the best out there. James Newton Howard's a phenomenal action writer right now as well, and yeah, I definitely. And then classic-wise, I was a huge fan of like Goldsmith when he was doing Total Recall and
of course,
and The Fugitive, and that was Newton Howard and those guys. I mean, just really great stuff. So I think a lot of my action writing is sort of comes from that world.
Yeah. No, I mean, because I think always the best scores work on that basis where the film doesn't necessarily have to be playing. You know what I mean? That the score works as because it's really, I know there is obviously classical music being written, but it's the 20th century's answer to sort of that classical music. You know what I mean? That's kind of what we have is film scores to some extent.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you're totally right about that.
I mean, obviously there are composers and things that are doing strictly classical and operatic things, and I don't want to belittle them. I'm just saying that the big scores, the great scores.
Yeah, the general, the big acceptance of what I would consider to be symphonic music is still really coming from film and video game scores.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was going to bring up, first of all, I wanted to talk about, you collaborate on about a handful of them now, I think, with the parody films with Jason Freiberg and Aaron Seltzer. Do you, again, talking about like how you go about those, do you score the parody, or does it give you a good opportunity to sort of, okay, at this point they're doing a parody of horror, so I can do like a little horror thing here. And are you putting parody in the music, and how are you approaching those films?
On those movies, I would say I play it 95% straight. So anytime I do a parody movie, it's almost all straight, except for sometimes after the joke, I'll comment on it with a little bit of humor. But 95% of the time, it's going to be straight.
And so, but I mean, I guess that gives you the chance to do sort of lots of genres in one film. Is that something that's exciting and a challenge?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, I'm very eclectic as a writer, so I kind of like the opportunity to do that, to sort of do a bunch of different things, even in one movie.
And you've also obviously gone on and done TV scores, and also you were talking about like James Bond music and things. You've done some of the James Bond video games and a whole slew of video games and things. What are the challenges in those two mediums, and are they different to film? And is there a discipline out of the three of them that you prefer?
There's definitely not one I prefer. I like, as long as it's inspiring and it's good people to work with, I sort of have a blast with all of them. I like the schedule on video games and movies better than television. Television's very fast, so it's hard to really sit back and enjoy it. You kind of are furiously working all the time. So I definitely prefer film and video games because they have a little bit more time. And I tend to love film, because I sort of came with that. That's what made me first fall in love with the idea of writing music for entertainment is really, the big stuff like Star Wars and those kind of things. So Godfather, that kind of deal. So that's really where I kind of come from, I think. So I think my first love is definitely that.
And your process of putting together a score, you obviously, do you get the rough cut, you get the script, how do you build it from the ground up? Talk us through the process. What instruments do you work on? Do you work solo and then bring it to the orchestra? How do you work?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing that happens is part of it depends on when I get brought on and by who. So if I get brought on early by a director that I've worked with, like say someone like Tim Story, then I'll usually get a script or before they even start shooting, and we'll talk a little bit while they shoot. And then once they start putting together a rough cut, I'll start working on some themes. And then once the film is locked or close to locked, we'll go scene by scene, score it. again, it'll still be all in my studio. And then at the end, we'll go to the orchestra and we'll go for a couple of days and record and finish the movie. Whereas if I don't necessarily have a director relationship, that, you know, it could be a quick phone call that says, we need you to start tomorrow and we need you to be done in 3 weeks. Go. In which case it's much more furious. That happens as well. And then I kind of just have to, you know, dig in my heels and work.
And I know that obviously, I mean, from talking to Brian Tyler, that he obviously, you know, he multi-tracks, plays a lot of instruments, puts a lot of himself into the scores. Do you do similar things, or does it depend on the score?
I think it depends on the score, and I obviously, you know, I know for Brian and I are friends, and Brian is much better at a lot of instruments than I am. So he is lucky because he can do that. I would never play drums myself because I'm not a very good drummer. I wish I was as good as he was on that stuff. But I do like, I play a lot of my own guitars. I do play a lot of the string instruments stuff, like I'll play some dulcimer and things of that sort. But then I usually hire the best people I can find to bring it to life once it's finished being written.
Right. And things like the conducting, because I know that's a particular, my father actually has done some conducting and things, and I know that's sort of a particular skill unto itself. Not a lot of musicians also conduct things. Did you find it a sort of an easy transition as well, or did it come with the scoring?
It definitely came from scoring and writing, but I studied conducting a bit at the beginning with Elmer and during our school, but then once I got out, I took a couple of master classes and really started to fall in love with conducting. And it's sort of the way I came up. Elmer conducted his own stuff. Basil Polidorus and Michael Kamen, who I also worked for, conducted their own stuff. So I just always felt comfortable doing that. I feel a little bit more comfortable being closer to the musicians and being able to like see them eye to eye and make sure I get what I want and make sure they're getting all the information they need. And I feel it's harder to do that when you're not out in front of them.
But it's almost like a performance, I would imagine, out in front of the orchestra. The first few times you do it, it must be quite nerve-wracking.
Oh, it definitely can be nervous, and especially because most composer conductors are not the same. They're not as as well trained as somebody like a Gustavo Dudamel here at the LA Phil or Zubin Mehta or something like that. Those guys are, they have doctorates in conducting and they know every piece of classical repertoire, and I can get it done, but I'm certainly not at that level. So I try to do my best, but most of it comes from wanting to interact with the musicians and get and make sure that everyone's getting what they need to get the project done well and quickly and clearly, and I think that's easier when you're sitting in front of them.
No, definitely. And is there, as you look back over the career so far, is there some scores that stick out to you particularly? Has there ever been an idea to sort of mount an evening of the score music or music that you particularly like that you've done?
Well, usually it's partial nights. One of the things I've done twice, and I'm going to go back there this summer, is be a part of this BSO Spirit Cordoba Film Festival. It used to be in Ubeda, Spain. Now it's Cordoba, and that's a situation where there'll be a couple of composers, and I'll probably do 3 or 4 pieces of mine, and there'll be 2 or 3 other people who will also do some. And I definitely, I haven't done an entire concert of my music, but often I do, I'll do 3 or 4 pieces as part of a program, and I do love to do that. I love, the more that we can play film music live, I think the better. I think it gets it out there, and it lets people enjoy it in a different sort of way and keeps the orchestra working, and overall I think it's a really great thing.
And are there 1 or 2 pieces you particularly pick out that you often play, or do you pick different ones?
I very often I play the main theme from Medal of Honor, European Assault, which I wrote for the game for EA, and then I played the music for Hop quite a few times, the Easter film. I played what else? The main theme from a game called Warhawk that I think turned out very well. And then the other one I love to do is the theme from Gun. And Gun is a video game that was all Western, so it's very
great.
much in it's very much in the big Western style of the Silverado or Magnificent Seven, those kind of things. So I think that one I really love to play.
Oh, fantastic. Now, that sounds great. Now, those evenings are wonderful. And I've been to a couple and I've seen a few. I mean, obviously, you mentioned Michael Kamen earlier, and I know that, obviously, his collaboration with Eric Clapton on the Edge of Darkness TV theme from the UK that was then played at the Albert Hall was just incredible. I mean, just a wonderful, wonderful evening of music. And Kamen is obviously a master at that kind of thing.
He was genius.
Yeah, what was it? Yeah, so talk us through then. You've had some interesting sort of mentors and interesting partnerships. Talk us through then. What are people like Kamen and Bernstein like? What did you learn from them? What are they like to work with?
Well, Elmer was very grandfatherly. Elmer was very old, was a grand old man with lots of wonderful advice, but he's very, very humble and very, very, soft-spoken and sweet. And he was really very encouraging as a teacher. And Basil was just spectacular. He really, we would go sailing, and he was really someone that I based a lot of my tendencies on, and a lot of my, the way I sort of work and write. But he was also a very, he's a surfer and a sailor, and is a much, a very sort of nature guy. He was always, doing a lot of things outside. Whereas Michael Kamen was, he was a consummate showman. He loved to work with, Pink Floyd and Eric Clapton, and he was really great with the politics of writing, and he was really great at combining, flashy rock and roll gestures with orchestra and even things like, bringing in, Beethoven and mixing it with the score for Die Hard and that kind of thing. He just really had a great outlook for those kind of things, and I just think he was spectacular. So I learned something different from all of them, but I think I'm sort of a mix of all three.
No, definitely. And so you've got Horrible Bosses 2 coming up. Like you mentioned, you've got another Kevin Hart, Tim Story collaboration. Do you think you'll stick, for the time being, mostly with sort of being a composer for comedies, or do you have some other stuff coming up where you're going to branch out to some other genres again?
Oh, we're definitely going to branch out. I love doing a little bit of everything. I know I've got, a lot of television still that I'm doing, Revolution and Supernatural, which are much more in the horror and thriller world. And then, I've done a couple of, independent dramas like Thanks for Sharing and Adam, and their directors are getting ready to work on their next films. So I'll probably also go back to drama a little bit at that point.
And do you like that? Do you like working when you do these big, obviously these big studio things? Do you like going back to doing something smaller, something more intimate?
Oh, I do. I think it's nice to be able to go to do a little bit of everything, because otherwise I think at a certain point you'd probably get stuck. And I think there's something really great about being able to go from one thing to something very different, to sort of to sort of invigorate your process and get creative.
And I saw you did the Marvel one-shot for Agent Carter. I know, see, I was talking to Brian about his Marvel scores. Have you done any of the other one-shots? Is there any talk of you doing any more with Marvel?
Well, I've done 2 one-shots. I did Item 47 and I did Agent Carter, and those were both for director Louis D'Esposito, who is actually the co-president of Marvel. And he and I are talking a lot about, he's hoping to direct a feature when he takes some time. He's obviously busy running the company, but at a certain point he wants to really get off and direct one of their movies. And I hope, hopefully, when he directs that, I'll be along for that one. So I'm hoping that in the next couple of years he'll do it, and I'll end up doing a full feature Marvel movie.
Oh, well, that'll be fantastic, Christopher. And we thank you ever so much for taking the time of talking to us today. It's been really fascinating, and we wish you all the best. And we'll follow your career. And if you ever want to come back and talk again, you're more than welcome.
I always will. I appreciate the time, and thank you everybody for listening. I appreciate it.
Like the show? Well, you can find our complete podcast archive over at amdpodcast.blogspot.com or aftermoviediner.com. You can send us an email at aftermoviediner@gmail.com, tweet us at aftermoviediner, or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/aftermoviediner. Or why not be a part of the show and leave us a voicemail over at speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner. You can also support the show a number of ways: by spreading the word to family, friends, and co-workers, by writing us a review over at iTunes or TalkShoe, by purchasing some excellent Diner merchandise over at cafepress.com/aftermoviediner, by donating on our website, by advertising with our website, or maybe you're a regular Amazon user. If so, then before you make a purchase, go to amdpodcast.blogspot.com, aftermoviediner.blogspot.com, or aftermoviediner.com and click through the Amazon banner ads. It costs you nothing extra, but they throw us a few coins for the trouble. Or, like the movies we cover, then buy them over at our personal Amazon store, also on amdpodcast.blogspot.com. Really, thanks everybody for everything you continue to do, and please keep listening.
There are men, and then there are second unit podcast men. The podcast you've just been listening to is part of the Second Unit Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at 2upn.blogspot.com or on Facebook under the Second Unit Podcast Network. Our fantastic list of shows include Drunk on VHS, We Came from the Basement, No Budget Nightmares, The After Movie Diner, Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid, and Bloodbaths and Boomsticks. Take one podcast into the shower. Don't be a blithering idiot, Alan. We can give you the multiple podcast cleansing system all in one place that your hair deserves. Our programming is available across all platforms, from iTunes to Podomatic, TalkShoe to Stitcher, so you have absolutely no excuse. Listen today, and a free naked person of your choice will be shipped from Thailand to your door in a matter of weeks. The Second Unit Podcast Network, bringing you the action and leaving the boring stuff to the other guys. Bloody hell, who does a girl have to blow around here to get a decent beverage?